Okay, I think maybe we should just get going since we only have a half hour. Hi, my name is Derek Gunderson, and on behalf of the Northwestern Workforce Science Project at the Center on Law, Business, and Economics, I want to welcome you here to our next People Analytics virtual career meetup. We have another great roster of panelists that are going to kick things off. But first, I'd like to turn things over to the director of the Workforce Science Project, Deborah Weiss. Deborah?
Thank you, Derek. We're delighted to see you all here at our third career meetup. This career webinar series is exploring how organizations shape the role and responsibilities of people analytics for today and for the future. Please put any questions you have in the chat. We'll try to answer them. And feel free to network by sharing your LinkedIn information and connecting to each other. We have a fabulous panel today. I'd like to welcome our moderator, Richard Rosenow, the VP of People Analytics Strategy at One Model. Richard?
Awesome. Thank you, Deborah. Yeah, I'm, again, thrilled to be here today. There is a lot going on in the people analytics space, especially different roles, different things that are happening. I know we have some layoffs that are happening kind of too in the market, but it's part of why I wanted to get this group together, because this job market for people analytics is still very hot. There's a lot of opportunities still happening, and we're really excited to bring some people forward today to talk about that. So I'm thrilled to be here today with Dave Lee from Blackstone and Rachel Cedarberg from Lightcast. Welcome to you both. We have a full agenda to talk about, so I'll be diving right in. In the previous meetups, we've kind of gone a little bit back and forth. This time, we're going to start with Dave, and then we'll go to Rachel, and if we got time at the end, we'll bring everybody back together. But I'm looking forward to hearing from everybody today. And yeah, please keep things going in the chat there too. I appreciate everyone that's putting things in so far. So Dave, thank you for being on. Could you please introduce yourself and your organization?
Yeah, sure. My name is Dave Lee, and I know I'm seeing a few familiar faces here, so really good to see all of you. But I'm a vice president in Blackstone's workforce planning and analytics function. We're focused on delivering analytics and insights to our partners in charge of our performance systems, employee rewards, as well as our recruiting strategies across the whole HR organization. And I joined the firm only about 2 months ago. So prior to this, I was at Google for a couple of years in the people analytics team. And then prior to that, I was at Citigroup in multiple analytics roles across consumer credit, investment banking, and institutional banking for about 8 years. So I don't come from a traditionally people analytics background, but I kind of made that pivot in the space, into the space a few years back. For those of you who are not familiar with Blackstone, Blackstone is the world's largest alternative asset manager. We're focused on investments in private equity and real estate, along with other services such as credit and hedge funds. If you really think about the scale of Blackstone and the number of portfolio companies that we own, Blackstone is almost kind of an economy of its own. So it's really just natural that we continue to expand our investment in top talent, technology, and data-driven business outcomes. So it's really just natural to expand our analytical capabilities, not just in the investment piece of it, but also in our HR space. So we have this open role that will be really an integral part of the HR analytics team, focused on delivering insights on our HR initiatives and talent strategies.
That's wonderful. Thank you, Dave. Well, one of the things that caught my ear there, as you jumped from outside of analytics and into this kind of HR space, is there something that surprised you about being part of HR?
I think one of the things is of course, the difference in the mindset for a lot of the people that are in the HR space. I think a lot of times it's easier to quantify, and the business side is always kind of easier to quantify the impact that you're making. You're seeing things in dollars, but in the HR space, a lot of times it's very hard to quantify the effect or the impact that you're making to the organization. So sometimes that also translates into accountability, the ways that people are kind of perceiving their responsibility. So that's been kind of the biggest difference, I would say. But generally, it is different. The way we work, we're people focused. Maybe on the business side, it's not always people focused. So I do love that people-centric nature of the organization.
That's wonderful to hear. Yeah, it's something we talk about a lot. This kind of HR supports people who make money for the business, and just having to work your way back on that and try to model that out. It can be like a butterfly effect. A small change can make a massive model change or a small model change, and it's kind of tough to see. But it's interesting to hear you kind of make that jump, and I really appreciate people that come in from outside of HR and bring that knowledge in. So thank you for jumping in, and I'm glad you stayed. Maybe another question for you here. Could you tell us a little bit more about the title and the open role that's on your team today?
Yes, so this role is an associate position in our HR workforce planning and analytics organization. So just a brief overview of the team. We have a few people who are dedicated to managing the right data, so really managing the infrastructure of the data. There are people who are aligned with more of a client-centric focus. We have people who kind of have aligned business units that they support and help really solve their needs, align with the specific business units that they cover. This role is a little bit specific that it's not going to be really focused on one specific business unit or a group of business units, but really focus on delivering more descriptive and predictive analytics across the organization. This will be working really closely with me to understand what type of problems that we have across our organization, not just in the lens of the different areas in HR, but also across the different businesses that we have at Blackstone, and really just being able to deep dive into those issues and come up with recommendations. So I think what we're really looking for is someone with the right analytical mindset to be able to determine which types of models and methodologies are appropriate to solve these challenges. And really just having someone with an experience, maybe a couple of years of experience in analytics, hands-on experience with data, with strong proficiency in SQL, and some familiarity in either Python or R. So that's really kind of the candidate profile we're looking for.
That's great to hear. I really like the perspective too of, I think sometimes we can get caught on individual business problems or business units, but that idea of, okay, let's look at the whole now. Like we've got to still look at that whole system about how these things fit together and how these things look across. And so that sounds like a really exciting part of the role, is that you can kind of touch on the local, but then also expand to the generalized. That's an exciting space to be working. And it's a nice thing about workforce planning is that it really touches that system as a whole piece too.
Yeah, and again, we are a very lean organization. So I think the good thing about this particular role is just having access to not just the different business units, but also just across our organizational development, our rewards teams, our compensation teams, our recruiting teams. Really just working very closely with all of them is really just a good opportunity for this role in our team.
That's fantastic. So when you think about really successful colleagues on the Blackstone team, what is it that makes them stand out, or what is it that made them kind of thrive at Blackstone? And feel free to drop names if you feel like it, because it's always good to give people a shout out.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's anyone in this call that are part of our colleagues, but I think there really comes down to three things. First is I think they really communicate well. I think having the analytical rigor, just being in this investment space or just analytical space, is kind of the bare minimum, but the most successful colleagues are really able to break down complex ideas and convey those ideas and recommendations very concisely. That's really something that I've seen common. Another characteristic I've seen across successful colleagues is that they're not afraid to get scrappy. Really, they're not afraid to get their hands dirty to understand what's really going on behind the scenes, to really do the work right with high level of quality. So that's another characteristic. I'll say the last thing I'll say about successful colleagues are that they're able to prioritize and focus on the right things and the things that do matter. I think just because we are a very lean organization, when we have 10 different things to work on, people who have the eyes to actually tackle on the 2 or 3 most important ones first and deliver value on those are the ones who really can move up fast and be successful. And also they can also really prove their value and impact.
I love that. A lot of times when we think about jobs, it's like you've got to execute the work, but the reality is you've got to execute the right work. You've got to execute the right thing. Otherwise, the work you're doing, it could be perfect, but if it's the wrong thing or the wrong priority, that's tough. So I'm glad to hear you thinking about that too. So let's put a hypothetical out there. If someone was competing between, you've got an offer out to the best candidate, and it's to Blackstone, you've got the offer, you're like, this is the one, and they've got a offer, same pay, same everything compensation to your competitor. I won't name a competitor, but just what would you say? You're like, okay, Blackstone stands out because of this thing. And everyone's got friendly people and everyone's got intelligent people, but it's like, what is it about Blackstone?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna go into details about how Blackstone's kind of world's largest alternative asset manager and all that stuff, but really, I think it's about the ability to make impact in this organization. We are very lean. If you think about the market cap that Blackstone is, and compared to kind of the size that we have in terms of our employee count, we are really, really lean. what that means is that we really get to prioritize on the right things, prioritize on the things that are really critical to our businesses. So that means you have the ability to make more impact. Kind of similar to that, you have access to the decision makers. Many times we'll be in conversations with leaders who are actually making those decisions that drive our HR strategies and programs. So that includes not just different leaders in the HR space, but also our leaders in the different business units. And also, yeah, of course, like we talk a lot with our CHRO, which is not very common, working in an analytics function in a company as big as Blackstone. So I think that's a really good thing. I think lastly, you just get to learn a lot with a few of the most talented people in the industry. Although our team sits within HR, we do have a lot of cross-functional exposure. We do have access to opportunities to learn from the brightest minds, and not just HR, but across different investment groups and the businesses. Also other like data science professionals that are not within HR, but like that sit with other investment groups. What that means is that there is definitely a lot of opportunities to learn and grow and not get siloed in HR, but also like have exposure to the different functions within the organization.
I love hearing that. That community of practice where HR is also invited to be part of that community of practice it speaks to the work you're doing there at Blackstone too.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to come back to something you said about the team around kind of this idea of lean. And I'm going to throw you a bit of a curveball here, but if let's say you were starting a team and it was a lean organization, is there a certain role you would want first? And there's not really a wrong answer here, but just as you're thinking about people analytics and kind of where you've seen success, and if you're going really, really lean, can you tell me a little bit about what you would think about there?
Yeah, I'll say it would depend on how lean, but I think the real importance is on getting the infrastructure right, making sure that you're putting all the right investments at the beginning in terms of getting the data structured, making sure you're transforming and translating all the messy data into a place where people can easily use and utilize. I know that doesn't happen everywhere. And sometimes people always spend a lot of time trying to understand and fix the data, and that could be weeks and months and years. But I think if you really put in the right investment in the first couple of weeks or first few months, you can save this ton of time in the long run. So I think that would be one important piece of it. The other is just having one or two people who are really versatile, like who are able to do almost like a full stack in terms of knowing how to spec out data infrastructure, data specs, but also at the same time having the analytical mindset, being able to kind of translate those the data set into ideas and recommendations that are really digestible by the business.
That's fantastic. Dave, thank you so much. Everybody, round of applause for Dave. Thank you, Dave, for coming on.
Well,
we'll be, yeah, really. And please, Dave, make sure we have the LinkedIn link in the chat for your role. And if people have referrals or opportunities, or if people want to apply, maybe here's a final question for you, Dave. Who should they reach out to about the role?
I think they can reach out to me. We also have Ryan, who's part of the Blackstone recruiting team. So feel free to reach out to him. But yeah, I think that it doesn't matter. We're just open in any way. So just feel free to reach out. Yeah.
Thank you, Dave. Okay, Rachel, could you please introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about Lightcast?
Sure. So great to be here. I'm Rachel Cederberg. I'm a senior economist and research manager on the applied research team at Lightcast. I've been with the company for about 3 years now. And prior to that, I was actually a college professor and taught economics. So total different thing. But Lightcast as a company, we do people analytics, right? And so typically when you think about us, if you know us in the space or know our former names of MC and Burning Glass, you think about software as a service, tools, APIs, that sort of thing. But specifically what my team does, which is a little bit different, is we come in when there needs to be something customized and very bespoke done with our data, with external data. We get to be what I like to call the crazy idea factory, and do the big custom consulting work. So that is kind of the short of what my team does within a larger company.
That is awesome. And Rachel, you've seen a couple transitions here too. Could you tell me a little bit about that move from academia into the people analytics space?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. So I graduated from Northeastern University, the other one, and we won't talk about
On the
that.
other side.
I have a PhD in labor economics. So I was always within the labor space, right? And I went to teach at Bowdoin College for a year up in Maine. And it was a 1-year appointment, knew it going in, and I was toying with different things. Should I stay in academia? Should I leave? And I saw this opportunity with, at the time it was Burning Glass Technologies, come up. And I knew them from my grad school days. And so I applied, thought, hey, let's see where this goes, because I knew the data and I love the data. It's a labor economist dream, right? To work with this kind of job posting data. So it all worked out. And that was that. I started mid-COVID, did a nice hostage handoff of my laptop with the FedEx guy on my front lawn in Maine. And there we go.
That's fascinating. For those who maybe aren't as familiar with Lightcast, could you talk about like what is the scale of the data? What's the scope of the data that y'all have access to?
So our primary data set that we leverage day to day is job postings data sets. So we scrape the internet for the near universe of job postings, and then we parse them for every bit of richness that we can possibly gather, right? Be skills, certification requirements, salary, location, any sort of information we can scrape away. We also do have social profile data that we can leverage from a supply standpoint. So those are our two main data sets that we have in-house. And then we obviously use every bit of public data available to supplement that as well.
That's awesome. And I'll throw a little bit of a curveball here. I've recently made the jump from kind of practitioner space into vendor land. You made the space jump from kind of academia into vendor. Could you kind of speak to like what was, when you're going through that decision process about, do you want to be like in-house somewhere or go to a vendor in the space?
Yeah.
Like, what do you think are some of the pros of being at a vendor versus maybe what are some of the pros from being in a practitioner role? I know that I'm asking you to kind of theorize about that a little bit, but just for people on the call.
So I was really torn. I'd been torn about, did I want to go pure research or academia for years? Daughter of an academic, so it was like this whole thing. And when I was thinking about what I wanted to do, if I'm doing the same thing day to day, I get bored. I get bored real quick. And for me, going to a vendor, I would be brought in for so many different problems. I have a new puzzle to solve every single day. So I'm exhausted and not bored ever.
That's good to hear, I think. It sounds good to hear. It sounds like you're in the right spot.
Yes.
So Rachel, it sounds like there's a lot of growth happening at Lightcast. Could you tell us about the different teams that are hiring right now? And then we'll double click into some of those.
Yeah. So we've got a bunch of hiring going on across all teams, across different verticals within the company. So our company is kind of 3 different verticals. We've got education, community, and talent. I sit within talent, as does my colleague Mark, and we primarily work with, CHROs and doing consulting along that lines, where education, obviously with educational institutions, that's colleges, universities, that sort of thing. And then community would be working with maybe local labor force development boards, things along those lines. So there are different streams of work within our company. What we tend to do on our side of things, at least in my consulting team, is emerging technology. So I somehow became dubbed the green jobs person. Don't really know how that happened, but that's me. I'm happy to be it. So yeah. There are a number of different layers through sales of our products and services, data backend sort of work, taxonomy work, customer success, and then we do have open roles on my consulting team as well, one for a senior analyst and one for a summer intern.
That's fantastic. Let's talk a little bit more about those 2 roles. Kind of for the senior analyst, it'd be nice to hear a little bit about kind of like what does a day-to-day look like? And then for that summer intern, kind of like what is it they're maybe going to accomplish over the summer?
Sure. So for the senior analyst, what we're looking for in this particular hire is someone who can manage projects, do some project management, both with, our internal team. We typically work in teams of, 2 to 3 at a time on various projects, but also interfacing with the client and making sure that client communications are going smoothly, client presentations are done, and taken care of, that sort of work. At the same time, you need to, be overseeing a project. So you need to be able to understand our data, understand, coding, in Python and SQL so that you can sniff test and make sure that everything the team is doing is going well, right? So we're kind of looking for that double threat, which is a tough fill. But that's the gist of this particular role. And we are actively hiring for that. We've already had 2 interviews today. So very, very
that's awesome.
exciting.
Maybe before we go to the intern, if you're thinking about that role, kind of like consulting at Lightcast or consulting with Lightcast compared to consulting at like a Big Four or kind of another consulting firm that's out there, what is it about Lightcast that really kind of like, if you talk about the work they're going to do, how does that differ? Where's the specialization there?
So with us, we're always kind of trying to push the envelope on our team, right? We're the tip of the spear, as our CEO likes to say, where we're coming up with the new methodologies to solve different problems that maybe one day go into product, right? We're defining spaces within the labor market that are currently either poorly or not defined at all, right? The green jobs example comes up again, where the US government taxonomy, the ONET taxonomy version of green energy is like 10 to 12 years old, not even close, right? And very narrow. And so we came up with our own. It was through a project that I was working on, and now it is going into our product. So we're like R&D, we're custom consulting. It's very, on the edge. So we're not doing repetitive work, which is something I think differs a great deal from a lot of other positions.
Super interesting. And that's helpful. Thank you for expanding there a little bit too. As you're thinking about your summer intern, then can you talk about kind of like the backgrounds of the profiles you're looking at, and then what will they accomplish by the end of the summer?
Absolutely. So the summer intern, we're looking for someone who knows R and R, Python and SQL, or some combination thereof, ideally Python and SQL. And we're looking for someone who's got really good critical thinking skills, right? Because when you work with data, we all know funky things happen, right? And so we're looking for someone who has those critical thinking skills, can be going through the data and doing the data work and say, hey, this doesn't smell right. I'm going to go figure out why, right? And that's a really rare skill to find. And that's really what we're looking for. What they'll come out of the summer with is an understanding of lots of labor force dynamics, right? We, as the washed up econ professor, I like to impart some labor econ where I can and teach that a little bit. But working on client projects, they'll be working with actual clients. This isn't like a work behind the scenes kind of thing. You are in the trenches with the rest of us. So it is very hands-on experience and really, really great. And, just for reference, we turn around most of our interns and make them full-time hires. So yeah,
that's great to hear.
Almost all of us were interns in one way or another.
That's great. So the with kind of the history with kind of the MC Burning Glass and coming together to be Lightcast, there's an interesting kind of like what's it like working there? Because you've kind of got, I'm sure, kind of like some of the vestiges of some M&A, kind of figuring out how to combine. I would love to hear just your thoughts on like, how did this come together? If you were there kind of during that coming together, and then a little bit about Lightcast today.
Yeah, I was there through it. I was on the Burning Glass side, so I was out of the Boston office. So at that point, we weren't in the office very much. It was still deep in COVID times. But we, came together. KKR backed Burning Glass financially and decided that they wanted to merge MZ and Burning Glass together and, make one giant beast of a company and in the labor market analytics space. And really, it's been a great experience. Obviously, there were the bumps, right? The biggest being we had 2 different email systems. That was not cool.
That's funny.
So, there are the typical bumps and getting to know each other. And it is, something different where we're all remote to begin with. And then when we are in the office, are in 2 very different places, Moscow, Idaho, and Boston, Massachusetts. So that was a little bit different. But largely it has been, a really great thing. I think both companies had really awesome pros to them and they were very complementary. So it's been good for most that I know.
That's great to hear. Yeah, as someone who's tracked the space for a long time, just two giants in the space coming together is always an exciting time.
Yeah.
And so it's good to hear it's kind of coming together there. The as you're thinking about Lightcast today then, and so what is it about Lightcast from like a cultural perspective or like the feel in the office. It'd be nice to kind of talk for a little bit about like what's it like working there.
Absolutely. So I can speak for my team most specifically, but on my team, we actually are a very diverse team. We have a most recent count was 10 people. 9 or 4 of those 10 are, analysts or below. And of those 9, 7 are foreign born, 7 are women. And so it's very exciting. It's, a very diverse group from all different backgrounds educationally. We've got statistics, data science, econ, philosophy, like you name it, we're all in there. And so it's been a really great way to push all of our different boundaries, right? And have so many different specialties coming together. And the diversity of thought and the openness to diversity of thought is really wonderful within our team. I think within the wider company, same thing. One of my favorite principles that we have is hide nothing, own everything. And that's always been very important to me, where I did make the jump from academia. I was used to, academic rigor in my research, and that was something I was not willing to compromise on, and I knew I could keep coming to Burning Glass and then Lightcast.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much for digging in there. Maybe pulling you both back together here. And first off, thank you, Rachel, for sharing everything you have. Thank you. I know everybody here has appreciated that. I've appreciated it, just kind of hearing about that too. Pulling you back together, I saw we had a couple of great questions in the chat that I just wanted to make sure we touched on. And there was one about kind of how important is it to attend people analytics conferences? And I'll caveat that a little bit as I pass it to both of you. Maybe another way to kind of spin this one too is, are there good places you go to learn about the people analytics space? And if you could share those, that'd be wonderful.
Yeah, so I have attended some meetups, some conferences. Those are always very helpful. In times where we weren't going out so much, a lot of Twitter, a lot of LinkedIn, those sorts of things were available. Reaching out through friends of friends at work and making connections that way. Just, as I always say, the worst thing someone says is no, if you ask to, meet with them or chat with them. So, encouraging, just reaching out in whatever way you can.
That's super helpful. Thank you. Dave, how about you? What comes
Yeah,
to mind when you think about keeping yourself up to date?
Yeah, I feel like I feel the same way. I mean, there's a lot of opportunities just to, learn about new ideas, new ways to tackle things through those conferences. I know there are a couple that even I met Rachel through in the TALREOS, and I think there's more regional stuff like, Plans for Future of Work. There's Society for Industrial and Organizational Psychology meetups. So there's a lot to, whenever I go to these things, like I don't go a lot, to be honest, because of the newborn that I have at home, but whenever I do, I think I always come back with a lot of new ideas that I can actually utilize in my own setting. So definitely a great opportunity if you're able to take advantage.
That's fantastic. Rachel and Dave, thank you so much for being on today. Everybody, thank you for jumping on. Thank you for participating. Please stay connected. Please make sure you attend these in the future. If these are valuable, reach out. If you end up finding a job at either Blackstone or Lightcast, please let us know too. It'd be great to know. And looking forward to seeing you again next time. Oh, and here's our shout out. This is our next one coming up. This is hot off the presses. We'll be having Courtney McMahon from Colgate and Mike Merritt from Sanofi attend on April 14th. So put it in your calendars now. We'll be sending out more details about that soon.
And I also put the survey link in the chat, and I'll send it out via email this afternoon also, because we're going to close the session now. But so be on the lookout for that in your email. Thank
you so much, Derek. Thank you, TALREOS and the Northwestern team as well for putting these together. And especially thank you to Derek for all the technical help. It's been wonderful getting on here. Bye, everybody.
Take care.